Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. It is one of the worst terror attacks on Pakistani soil. A group of armed fighters of the Balochistan Liberation Army hijacked a moving train in Pakistan's far west. While they released most of the women, children and other civilians, there are still over 100 hostages, many of whom happen to be security personnel, either from the army or the local police, who are still inside the train and who are still held captive by the BLA. This is by far the most daring terror hijack in Pakistan's history. But the question is, who are the BLA? What is this organization, the Balochistan Liberation Army? Pakistan has declared it a terror organization since 2006. So has the US, but not the United Nations. They are not a designated terror organization by the United Nations. Certainly, the government of India has not viewed them as a terror organization. What sort of signal are they sending out to the Pakistani state by carrying out such a daring terror hijack that they have done on this train that was traveling between Quetta and Peshawar? And the most important question, in a big attack that happened in August of last year, right after that, Shahbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, announced a $70 million anti-BLA program. What has happened to that? And what may be the Pakistani state's response now after this daring hijack?
सर हम लोग को छोड़ दिया, फिर बोला आप लोग जाएं भाई, अपना रास्ता पकड़े, निकलते जाएं। आप लोग के साथ दुश्मनी नहीं है।
पुलिस स्टेशन क्रॉस किया हमने, उसके 15-20 मिनट बाद, आधे घंटे के बाद ये बस से हादसा हुआ हमारे साथ। बस उसके बाद फिर हम लोग वहाँ से पैदल हम लोग पुलिस स्टेशन पे अपने बच्चों के साथ हम लोग ये नाले के बीच में से लोगों ने हमें छोड़ दिया।
So the Baloch Liberation Army, the BLA, is an insurgent group which seeks independence for Balochistan, which is a province that's located in Pakistan's southwest. It borders Afghanistan to the north and Iran to the west. It is the biggest of several ethnic insurgent groups that have battled the federal government of Pakistan for a number of decades now. Their contention is that the Pakistani federal state unfairly exploits Balochistan's rich gas and mineral resources. The insurgents have been fighting to lay a claim to local resources which they say belong to their people, and their people are not getting a fair share. Balochistan's mountainous border region serves as a safe haven as well as a training ground for these Balochi insurgents as well as Islamist militants. So how did they become particularly lethal in the last few years? The BLA shocked the entire country's security establishment when it barged into an army and navy base back in 2022. That was the first big daring attack that they made on a military facility. It's also deployed women suicide bombers, including an attack on Chinese nationals at a university in Karachi, as well as a bombing in southwest Balochistan, which targeted a Chinese infrastructure project. An umbrella group of several Baloch ethnic groups said last week that it had convened all factions in a bid to unite them under a unified military structure. Remember, the Balochis are largely driven by their tribal loyalties. This is the first attempt to try and unify a Balochi identity over more parochial, more traditional tribal identities. So the Balochistan dispute in Pakistan has got a long and complex history. It dates all the way back to 1948, right after Pakistan got independence and became a new nation. In fact, in 1948, the region, which is Balochistan, was forcibly integrated into Pakistan. The Khanat of Kalat initially declared independence. He was the ruler of Balochistan. It was a princely kingdom. He declared independence, but then was pressurized by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of modern-day Pakistan, to accede to Pakistan, even though they were very good friends. This led to the first wave of armed resistance or insurgency in Balochistan. And subsequently, over a number of years, number of occasions, there have been repeated insurgencies from 1958 to 63, 69, 73 to 77. Each of them was marked by escalating violence, and more indigenous Balochi tribes were taking part in the insurgency. The current insurgency, which began in 2003, is fueled by grievances over resource exploitation as well as the marginalization of the Baloch people. Remember, they have a twofold grievance. One, that Punjabis and Sindhis, who are the majority ethnicities of Pakistan, they have come and taken over the resources and the natural habitats in Balochistan. But more importantly and more recently, there's also severe backlash against Chinese projects, China-funded projects like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is a $60 billion infrastructure project, much of which passes through the restive province of Balochistan. So the Baloch people of late have been unhappy with Chinese projects, particularly CPEC, and there are a number of reasons for this. They feel that the Baloch natural resources are being exploited without them getting an adequate share or benefiting the local population. There's also the influx of workers, basically Punjabi-speaking folks from Lahore, which is the biggest city, or even Sindhi-speaking folks from the south of Pakistan, as well as Chinese workers themselves. The fear of the Baloch is they're being rendered a minority in their own region. These projects are seen as consolidating federal control over Balochistan. Also, it doesn't help that Balochistan has had numerous premiers over the last 10 years or so, and that undermines local autonomy for the politicians in that province. So this is an ongoing hostage situation. Over 100 hostages have been released from that train, the Jafar Express, and over 100 are reportedly still being held captive by the BLA. Let's try and make sense of this, not just the immediate story that is happening, but also, more importantly, what is the BLA? Why are they behind some of these major terror attacks that have happened in Balochistan? And what now happens between this ongoing rivalry, this ongoing standoff that's happened over a period of time between the Pakistani state and these Baloch rebels? I want to go across to someone who knows a thing or two about Balochistan. Tilak Devasher is former Special Secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat, also the author of this fascinating book, The Balochistan Conundrum. Thank you very much, Mr. Devasher, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. I want to talk about what's happening right now in Balochistan, the hijacking of this Jafar Express. There's conflicting reports coming. Obviously, it's an ongoing situation. It's a fluid situation. The Pakistan Army claims that they have eliminated about 30 of these Baloch rebels. The Baloch rebels, on the other hand, the BLA folks who've taken over this train, they are saying that they released about 80 women and children, and the others who've been released too have been released because they wanted them out, and that they are sticking to security personnel as the hostages on board the train. Just try and make sense of this story for us. What are you picking up? And have you seen anything like this before? Do you believe that the hijacking of this Jafar Express train is an inflection point in the ongoing war between the Pakistani state and the BLA?
Yes, first of all, as you rightly said, it's a developing situation. There's a lot of fog of misinformation that is going around. But I was seeing something on X that the people who have been released, the hostages, they say that they were released by the fighters, Baloch fighters. The Pakistan Army claims that they were rescued them, which has been totally debunked by the people who have actually been released. It's typically Pakistan Army to claim credit when it's not theirs. So that's one part of it. The second, yes, it is an inflection point. It is a very, very, I've never seen this kind of an escalation in the insurgency. People in the future will talk about Jafar Express and post-Jafar Express incident, because in all the years that I've watched Pakistan, in fact, in other places also, a train has never been hijacked. Hijacking a train is a huge event, to coordinate that. How do you stop a train which is moving? So the planning which is involved, the coordination that is involved. So it takes the insurgency up to a totally new kind of level. In fact, the only other time when a train was to be hijacked was in Sholay. If you remember, the dacoits tried to hijack the train, and Viru and Jay stopped that. But so this is upscaled it now, and this has got international attention. Irrespective of what the outcome is, everybody's going to be asking that why did a train have to be hijacked? It's got the attention of the international community like never before.
So tell us a little bit more about this Balochistan Liberation Army, because all of the big attacks, the big terror attacks that have happened in the recent past in Balochistan have carried the imprint of the BLA. They've either directly claimed responsibility or the Pakistani state has held them responsible for it. What do we know about the Balochistan Liberation Army? What do we know about the Murray family, the Murray tribe, which controls the BLA? And, despite whatever it has said and done, all of these multiple military operations that the Pakistan Army has undertaken against the BLA, including, I think, Shahbaz Sharif announcing about $60 million or something of that sort, just specifically on these terror operations against the Balochistan Liberation Army. Why is it that the might of the Pakistan state has not been able to eliminate the Balochistan Liberation Army?
Like all insurgent organizations, it's a very shadowy organization. We don't have full details about the leadership profile. Where is it located? Who are the leaders of it? It is suspected, as you rightly said, to belong to the Mari Kabila, the Mari tribal group. The leader at one time was Balach Mari, the eldest son of Khair Bakhsh Mari. He was killed in Afghanistan. But thereafter, it's a very shadowy kind of a thing. We don't know, what the leadership thing is. But that is not so much an important thing. The important thing is that they have now expanded beyond the tribal limits of the Mari tribe. And that's why they are so successful, and that's why they've been able to launch operations not just in the Mari area, tribal area, but all over Balochistan. So that means obviously other people have also joined it. And I think, and recently, if you remember, all the Baloch groups seem to have got together and decided that they will fight unitedly and carry out united and coordinated operations and give the name to themselves of the Baloch National Army. This was announced and came out and made a lot of noise in the media. And if this happens, if the Baloch are able to get out of the mold of tribal loyalties and fight unitedly, it'll be a force multiplier for the against the Pakistan Army. The Pakistan Army is going to have a very tough time in trying to deal with a united Baloch organization that is, taking them on in different parts of Balochistan, rather than only in the tribal belt.
Also, if you could give us a bit of a historical context. Obviously, the fight between these Baloch rebels and the Pakistani state has been going on since independence, since 1948, really. But particularly in the last few years, is there a feeling in the Baloch people, which has now been espoused by these rebels, that their land is being exploited, their resources are being exploited, and they are not getting a fair share of whatever is being taken by the Pakistani state from Balochistan, and also all of this anger that we're seeing against these Chinese projects, the CPEC projects inside Balochistan. Just give us a bit of a historical context to this ongoing sort of standoff, confrontation between the Baloch rebels, the Baloch people really, and the Pakistani state.
Actually, there are two reasons. First of all, this goes back to 1948. When the princely state of Kalat, as Balochistan was then called, the accession was done forcibly. The Khan of Kalat was kidnapped from his place and taken to Karachi and forced to sign the instrument of accession, even though Jinnah was a personal friend of his, and Jinnah was his lawyer, who pleaded the case for Kalat's independence to the British. It's a real irony of history. So, and the Khan of Kalat's brother broke out in insurgency in 1948 itself. So whenever the Baloch have been strong, or they felt they were strong, they've broken out in insurgency. There was insurgency in 48, there was insurgency in 1960, there was insurgency in 73, 77. And this particular insurgency has been carrying on since 2004. So this is the real underlying reason of why the Baloch have not reconciled to being a part of Pakistan. And you cannot ignore this particular issue. And the second thing is resources, yes, but it has gone beyond resources. And one of the tactics that the Pakistan Army has utilized in Balochistan is this missing persons. They just pick up people without any arrest warrant. They are tortured, and their mutilated bodies are sometimes found and sometimes not even found. So you have a large number of women, for example, who don't know whether they continue to be married or they are widows. There's a term in Balochistan, a very unfortunate term called half widows, where somebody whose husband has been missing for 15 years doesn't know whether his husband is alive or dead. And likewise with the fathers, likewise with brothers, likewise with sons. So this kind of, pushing the Baloch to the wall is one of the major reasons why, on the one hand, now the women have come out to the forefront and are leading civil society protests against missing persons, and the remaining younger people among the Baloch have joined the armed groups, because they know that if they continue to stay at home, they're going to be picked up one day or the other and killed. So they might as well join one of these armed groups, kill a few Pakistanis before they go. So these are the two fundamental reasons. And then you add to that the exploitation of resources, the Chinese factor, that's what you mentioned. So it's the real witch's brew.
All right, Mr. Tilak Devasher, thank you very much for joining us and putting this issue into perspective for our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.